In your book on happiness, you make a distinction between joy and happiness, or you actually debunk some things about that. And by the way, Randy has his books on CD where he reads through them, and I travel a lot, so I'm in the car and I stick the CD in there, and that's how I got through the book on happiness. But this idea of happiness and joy just drove to my heart, and I'd like you to talk about that for a minute.
Well, I think almost all of us, maybe all of us, have heard the common distinction that's made between joy and happiness. Joy is this spiritual word, and it and one of the things that's commonly said about joy is a spiritual condition. It is not an emotion. And if you look up, joy is not an emotion, put quotes around it, and you'll find, I don't know, 17,000 times that will appear online, and almost never is it an unbeliever saying it. It's a believer. See, so what we try to do is take it away from the emotional realm, but in Scripture, as I demonstrated in the happiness book, there's many places where kara, the common word for joy, is very clearly circumstantial. I heard our friend, and that's the other thing that's said, is that joy is never circumstantial, and happiness is just circumstantial, so that makes it bad somehow. Well, he's rejoicing, Paul is, that Epaphroditus didn't die. You know, he was sick, and it looked like he was going to die, but he didn't, and so we rejoiced at the... Do you think he was feeling any emotion with that? Do you think that was making him happy? And in Christian history, joy, happiness, gladness, merriment, delight were all synonyms. They're part of what is called, in linguistics, the same semantic domain. And a semantic domain means all of these words are interrelated. They are synonyms. It doesn't work to take joy and put it over here and say, it's not happiness. Happiness isn't joy. It simply doesn't work, and it just confuses people. Because what does everybody want? To be happy. And most people, if you ask them, what do you really want more than anything else? If you're totally honest, most people won't say to be joyful, but if they did say to be joyful, they would mean they want to be happy. We should stop apologizing for the word and making some artificial distinction. I mean, I contacted a number of linguists, a number of Hebrew and Greek scholars. You know, English is one of the relatively few languages where you have, for instance, the blessed and happy thing where, you know, the word that the Hebrew and Greek words for happiness that are translated blessed in the English are just the standard words. French is an example of it. I don't know French, but I have friends who know French, and they say that this word right there that's the word for happiness, and everyone knows it. And when it's being translated into an unreached people group, into some new language where the Bible's never been translated before, all the linguistic guidelines say find the closest word to happiness in this language and use that word here. So we just have got to stop making this false distinction between joy, happiness. They're all the same. What would you say to somebody? Well, you can go to that party and have joy, but you can't have happiness. Or I hope that you have a joyful wedding day, but don't have a happy one. And even, are you going to start singing? Stop singing Happy Birthday, because God doesn't care about happiness. In fact, it's bad. And so let's make it joyful birthday to you, joyful birthday to, and then it would be like, why are you even saying that? And it means the same anyway.
So even in the English language, at one point it meant the same, but then it got separated at some point where we maybe even in the evangelical community,
yes, it was.
Made them a distinction.
It was in the evangelical community, and with all due respect for Oswald Chambers and my utmost for his highest, and I always say this because I love the book, but what he was trying to do, as a number of evangelicals in his day, and let's say predominantly maybe the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, They were seeing all these people that are pursuing happiness in sin and turning away from God. And so they treated happiness as the problem and the seeking of happiness rather than sin. As the problem is sin. The problem is not that you want to be happy. Of course you want to be happy, and you always will want to be happy. Just be happy in Jesus.
Maybe.
And that there were songs like that, right? Trust and obey. To be happy in Jesus is to trust and obey. And it's just like, of course we should be happy in Jesus. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing when we find it in the right place.